Okay, good evening. As I had mentioned, we're starting a few minutes later because our last session ran a bit later and we needed to move people out and in and bio breaks and all that other business. So welcome to the council chambers for our council meeting this evening, and I'm going to call to order our meeting at 6:35 p.m. We're going to start with a moment of silence. Thank you. Moving on to our land acknowledgement, the municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures around the table? I note that none were received prior to tonight's meeting. Seeing none, moving on to item number 3, closed session. Earlier today, council passed a motion to proceed into closed session at 5 p.m. to consider business as permitted under the Municipal Act and is listed on today's agenda. This motion was passed in a public session streamed live and was in accordance with our closed meeting policy. In the continuing interest of transparency, I can report at this open meeting the outcome of today's closed session. We approve the special in-camera meeting minutes from March 26th. That is the last time that we met in closed session. Council considered a confidential report from staff with respect to a collective agreement, terms of ratification for the Parks, Cemeteries, and Facilities Division, and provided direction to staff. Moving on to item number 4, business arising from closed session. Coming out of closed session, we do have some business arising. Can I get a mover and seconder on the following motion? That council authorizes the ratification in principle of the memorandum of settlement between QP Local 74902, Parks, Cemeteries, and Facilities, and the Corporation of the Municipality of Port Hope, signed and dated March 26, 2024, inclusive of the terms generally outlined in the confidential report FS 0524. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Adam, seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, announcements, updates, and recognitions. Starting with Walton Street reconstruction update. A reminder that the Walton Street reconstruction project is scheduled to begin next week. To ensure clear communication, our staff have established dedicated channels specifically regarding updates regarding Walton Street. The project is vital to our community's future, and your patience and your support are greatly appreciated. Stay connected with us on our dedicated Instagram and Facebook pages. You can find the pages on both platforms by searching the handle Port Hope Digs Walton. Please spread the word to your friends and neighbors. We will provide daily updates to keep you informed of the progress. And of course, we are all dedicated to supporting local businesses in this community as we go through this challenging time of opportunity. Moving on to the Gani weekend. A hearty and heartfelt thank you to all the event planning teams, emergency response personnel, and all our partners and volunteers who make Float Your Fanny Down the Gani a success this year. Your unwavering commitment ensures that we are provided a safe and enjoyable experience. And it was wonderful to see, despite the weather, we had great crowds and great fun in Fannyville. Moving on to support local. And again, this is going back to the theme of the Walton Street Reconstruction Project. Please remember to support local. Keep our community thriving by supporting our local businesses. Remember to shop, to dine, and utilize the services offered by our talented local professionals. Your support, especially over the next few months, is going to be essential, and it will make the difference. I also have an update that I'm going to pass over that the clerk would like to make to the public. So I'm going to turn it over to our clerk.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It has always been the practice of the Legislative Services Division to provide regular updates with respect to the municipal election, in this case, the municipal by-election. So I wanted to take this moment to provide an update to you with respect to the administrative activities taking place with respect to the Ward 2 by-election, which has been set for June 6th. That is the date of that will be voting day. So preparations for the Ward 2 by-election are currently ongoing, and municipal staff are working very hard to ensure that we're fulfilling all of our legislative obligations. We recently presented an accessibility plan to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and once that their feedback has been incorporated, we will be finalizing that plan and we'll be posting it on the municipal website. We have been working hard to communicate the municipal by-election as well. The municipal by-election website is live. It's porthope.ca/by-election. And we have also posted signage advertising the by-election in central areas in Ward 2, including this transfer station. So you may be, residents in Ward 2 may be seeing that signage around town when they're there. We're also going to be sending communication to households in Ward 2 with key information on the by-election. So residents that live in Ward 2 should be watching for that information to be coming through the mail. Should be coming through in the next week to 10 days. I also want to highlight that the most up-to-date information regarding this by-election is available through our municipal website, so please do check that regularly. Also check our social media page because we do post regular updates as well as information with respect to the by-election on the municipal website and our social media pages. You can also contact elections@porthope.ca if you have any questions or if you want to check to see if you're on the voters list. I remind residents again that this by-election is for Ward 2 residents only. So Ward 1 residents will not be getting the same type of communication in this regard. And then finally, I want to remind everyone that nominations close on April 22nd at 2 p.m. Following that, we will be releasing the final list of certified candidates. And as I said earlier, I will continue to provide regular updates to council with respect to the by-election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated, all the updates and information. Before I move on to the next item, does anybody around the table have any updates that they would like to share? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move right on to our presentations of this evening. We're going to start with presentation 6.1, Stefan Horn, Ganaraska Oak Ridges Guardians, regarding development of a cell tower on the Oak Ridges Moraine. So it is now time for a series of our presentations, and I just want to remind the public we do have a number of presentations and deputations on the agenda tonight to ensure that we have an opportunity to consider everyone's opinions. I ask that all presenters and deputations to adhere to their time limit, and the clerk does have a bell, and yes, as demonstrated, and will ring the bell to signal a 1-minute warning. So I now welcome Mr. Horn to the podium. If you can be so kind and press that purple button on the right-hand side, speak into the microphone, and just a reminder that you have 10 minutes.
Hello, could everyone hear me? Yes, hi. Anyways, hi guys, Stefan Horn here. Resident of Ward 2. I've been, my family, we moved into the Oak Ridges Moraine 40 years ago. And recently, December 24th, we became aware of a cell tower, proposed cell tower being placed on our neighboring property. It was at this point that we, as a neighborhood, we realized that we weren't the only ones in opposition of this proposed tower. So we created a group called Ganaraska Oak Ridges Guardians, and as a group, we are all committed to the preservation of the Oak Ridges moraine, and the tower is proposed to be in the Oak Ridges moraine, and therefore that's our objective is to see to it that this does not happen. And in doing so, we have gone into the community. We have gotten about 80 signatures opposing the planned tower. Within the 80 signatures are within the radius of the tower's effectiveness. Anyways, so yes, let's just get moving on here. I'll see if this works. Okay. Yeah, so we are asking council for a letter of non-concurrence. And the biggest reason for this is there was no site plan brought forth or site protocol for the tower. It was quite evident at our first meeting with EORN, who is the group that's responsible for the expansion of rural cell effectiveness signals, and SpectraPoint, the tower manufacturer, the tower builder. And anyways, during the first meeting, they weren't even aware that this tower was being placed in the Oak Ridges moraine. And that was quite concerning to us as a group. And in that meeting, yeah, there was a lot of opposition against the tower. So we strongly urge this council to provide a letter of non-concurrence regarding the proposed cell tower. We are also asking that they do not make any decisions until the upcoming by-election, as we would prefer to have full Ward 2 representation. And anyway, so keep going here. Yes, so it is crucial to recognize that while Rogers, in the pursuit of completing their project and expanding their network, has seemingly made a concession by indicating they would build a 60-meter tower instead of a 90-meter one. This concession, however, comes with a caveat that cannot be overlooked. Rogers retains the ability to add 25% to the height of the tower without further consultation. This loophole raises serious concerns with the long-term impact on our environment and the integrity of the moraine. So anyways, one significant aspect that exaggerates our apprehension is the absence of a site protocol within our municipality. This absence leaves us without clear guidance and parameters on the appropriate placement of cell towers, particularly within ecologically sensitive areas like the Oak Ridges moraine. Without such guidelines, we risk making decisions that could have far-reaching, irreversible consequences for our environment and the wildlife that inhabit it. It's worth noting that our neighboring communities do have such a protocol, and to ensure local planning protocols are met, and these such issues can be avoided as a tower being proposed to be going in the Oak Ridges moraine. It is worth noting, according to the Oak Ridges Moraine Act, that all efforts should be made to explore alternatives before developing any infrastructure within this protected area. This legislation underscores the importance of prioritizing conservation, preservation, our decision-making process. So basically that no utility should enter the moraine unless all other options have been looked at. And, you know, obviously as this tower, it was actually their very first, the first landowner that they approached accepted the tower and signed the deal. And there was no site protocol, nothing was done or looked at. And that's why during the first meeting in Canton, they were shocked to learn that this tower was to be placed in the Oak Ridges moraine. And part of that reason, I guess, is every other municipality that EORN is putting a tower into does not have the Oak Ridges moraine in it. And, you know, as you guys know, it's just the top corner of our municipality that does. So it was definitely an oversight for them. And we're here today to hopefully rectify this issue. And, you know, as a community, we all live, you know, we live in this protected land for a reason. And we feel as though that the tower can go elsewhere and still be very effective. Speaking on that, actually, is I'm not sure if you're aware, but Cavan Monaghan has just approved a tower which is going in north of the Ganaraska Forest, and as the tower has about a 5-kilometer radius of effectiveness, the tower in Cavan will already cover probably about 40% of where this tower is going. So there's quite a redundancy to it. Anyways. The other issue is without a proper site plan or protocol for the tower here in our community, there's also no plan for the decommissioning of the actual tower itself. And this technology may become redundant in the next 5 years. And now, who is removing this tower from the land and so forth. So yeah, one of the misconceptions, actually, it's worth noting. So EORN, in their site selection protocol, they outline that the council does have some options. And so once there's a proposal presented to council, there's 3 options: either agree, disagree, or request further information before making a decision. However, there's been a great deal of confusion about the role of council and staff raising concerns about the transparency and accountability of the decision-making process. So the main issue we have is that the project is a Rogers narrative, not a cell gap issue for both providers. Myself, just so you guys know, I run a business with more than 20 employees, and with 0 complaints on cell coverage. We may use a different network provider than Rogers, but we're not having any connectivity issues. So it does appear to be a Rogers narrative more so than a connectivity issue. Anyway, so that moving on here. So basically, council, they're saying that council does have a say in this. Agree, disagree, or request further information before making a decision. So the impact to the community. The Oak Ridges Moraine is not merely a piece of land. It is a sanctuary for countless species of flora and fauna. The introduction of any infrastructure, especially one as significant as a cell tower, threatens the delicate balance of this ecosystem. From the towering oak trees to the myriad of wildlife that call this place home, their existence is inextricable linked to the preservation of this natural haven. So as I mentioned before, the Oak Ridges Marine Act is in place to protect this land, and therefore no utilities shall enter this land unless there's no other means possible. So anyways, we owe it to ourselves and future generations to exercise prudence and caution in matters that could irreversibly alter the landscape of our natural world. The potential harm to biodiversity, water sources, and overall ecosystem health cannot be overstated. The tallest communication tower guidelines and lights cause almost 7 million bird deaths in North America each year. Obviously, that's being in the Oak Ridges Moraine and having an effect on the environment poses a significant issue. So, So anyways, what our ask is, we do support the development of communication infrastructure. I myself, I'm a business owner. I studied economics, and during the last meeting, I did ask SpectraPoint, what is the cost to the taxpayer of this tower? Approximately each tower is 1 million. How much time do I have? Does that mean 1 minute? Approximately each tower has cost $1 million to build, and therefore Rogers funding half of that. It's costing half that to the taxpayer. So there's about $500,000 that it costs the taxpayer to have such a tower built. And in the last meeting, the first meeting, there was no opposition to the tower. The last meeting, there was 5 people that said no to the tower, but the attendance was 65. So 60 of the people are against the tower and 5 are for it. The percentage is quite low. It's about 8%. So we're spending $500,000 to service 8% of our population, where there's other parts in the municipality that are underserviced, and where this money would go a lot further than it would here, especially in an area that is in the Oak Ridges Moraine. and is protected, and hopefully we will not see this tower in the Oakerson Ring. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for sharing the perspectives of the community and your neighbors. And I will turn it over now to my council members for any questions or comments. Councillor Less.
All of council was in attendance at that meeting, as you all know, and we heard the voices loud and clear from both sides, and the residents were more clear than the presenters. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So through the chair, thank you for your presentation, and to the community. Since the sign was posted on Christmas Eve, I've heard from many of you, very passionate, very well spoken, and have come together as a community, which is fantastic to see. And I've heard opposing views as well, and I've had a lot of discussion with staff. So I feel fairly well informed, but at the same time, there's a lot of communication out there where there's comments and things spoken on behalf of council and council's role, and it's causing a lot of confusion between the community as well as council and so on. So I guess this is a question to staff. Is there a way that we can have some sort of point of contact so the community has the right information at the right time, so we're not guessing and we're not sending the wrong story? And I know CAOs that you have provided us an update individually last time, which I did forward to those community members, but more in a formal format so that they can just go and find next steps or new information or something like that. Because there's a lot of people speaking for us saying that we can just do something that we just can't do, right?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Thank you. And Councillor Meek, just to clarify, are you asking if we can put a formalized document or an FAQ document or something up on the website, or are you asking for an email address specifically for residents to email their questions to?
It could be either. So maybe that's a brainstorming. Maybe not a question that you have to answer right now, but whether it's an FAQ or designated email or some place. As far as I understand, the community is doing a lot of discussions amongst themselves. So maybe one point of contact. And I know that we're here for that role as well, but just to keep that dialogue going so that they have the answers that they need when they need it.
Of course, of course. And residents can always reach out to municipal staff and ask a question at any point in time. We will gladly answer. The planning department is the point of the division of contact for this particular file. That said, I'll take it away. I think there is an opportunity to ensure that we have some information on the website, but we are learning throughout this process as we're going. So ensuring that the information that we're putting out there is consistent messaging through all levels of government, from the federal government down. Staff has met with ISID last week, so we learned some more information there. But duly noted, we'll take something back and then we'll keep council informed as to next steps.
Thank you very much. And I have one more question, and this is more of a question to the mayor who represents us on county council, is that you did mention about a cell policy, and I know staff is working at that, but a few years ago, Northumberland County adopted the Smart Northumberland Cellular and Broadband Strategy, and it's quite surprising to me to know that part of the mandate of that strategy was not that every member municipality have a cellular policy that aligned with each other, because when a tower goes up, it crosses boundaries that reach. So potentially, if that's something you could take back to the county, that Hamilton Township may have something that aligns with us, for instance, as a neighbor. Clarington has one, so it would be nice to have something that kind of stretched across jurisdictions underneath that strategy that the county already owns.
So thank you for that. Certainly some of the discussions we're having today are discussions that occur at the county table. I think on the operational side of things that I would refer that to our CAO to bring to the table for CAO discussions around some of those efforts. And as I also understand it, and maybe the CAO would like to speak to this, maybe a little bit more detail on the protocol that may be under development for our municipality.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I will take it to the CAO county table. It has been discussed in my time here, but as things are ramping up and also even further reaching further to the north into municipalities in Peterborough County, Kevin Monaghan was mentioned. So I think we need to probably even go outside of Northumberland County for those of us that border Clarington, Peterborough County, etc. But duly noted. Thank you. Yes, so municipal staff is working on an internal protocol. There is an internal document dated 2008, I believe, Director Davis, it's 2008 that it was drafted and is in desperate need of updating.
Yes, to the chair to the CAO, absolutely. There's a document that was created in 2008, which is probably the last time we had significant issue around cell tower construction in this community, and so that's probably why that sort of protocol or policy was put into place. We have not used it in a long time. And traditionally, I mean, just to be sort of upfront and clear, we have received, so the way that this process works traditionally is the proponent themselves are responsible for conducting public consultation. We have no, until we receive a request for concurrence and an application for site plan, we don't typically, or have not in the past as a municipality, typically got involved. And I would say today, I have not received, the planning division has not received, nor the municipality has not received either an application for site plan, nor a request for concurrence from Rogers, Spectra Point, or Eorn. So at this exact moment, related to this exact project, they are certainly doing public consultation. They may decide, or may not, but they may decide not to ask us for concurrence. They may decide to change their plans. They may, in fact, ask for concurrence, and at that time, we would address those issues as they come forward. But we have not received anything from them yet, so it's very difficult for me to understand even what they're trying to do. I mean, I generally understand what's trying to happen, but it's hard for me to speak as to what their proposal is because it may change in respect to the public feedback. As Mr. Horn pointed out, the original consultation was around a 90-meter tall tower. They've come back with a 60-meter tower. That could, in fact, change yet again. So until we know exactly what they're asking us to concur on, we really have nothing. I really can't comment on where we are in the process.
Thank you, Director Davis. And I believe that the CAO may want to further comment. But just to clarify, to make it perfectly clear, from your perspective, and I'd like to hear as well confirmation from the CAO that on this file, the municipal process has not been triggered. Is that correct? Is that a yes?
That is correct. Yes, the municipal process has not been triggered. There has been no formal submission, no formal request, no significant documentation received by municipal staff in order to trigger a review process, a consultation process internally to ensure that we have an opportunity to ask questions and to meet with the proponent to ensure we have a clear understanding as to actually what they are proposing. To follow up what Director Davis said, they could change their minds and propose something significantly different than what has based on feedback received at the public consultation during the public consultation process. So until that is received, if that is even received, municipal staff essentially are not able to comment specifically and give details on the potential outcome of the file itself. That said, on the internal protocol, it has been identified that the 2008 document obviously is not doing its job any longer. And so it is a main priority of municipal staff to ensure that we have that document. It's important to note that it will not solve and all of the issues that are arising specifically on this file. The municipality has a role, the proponent has a role, the federal government has a role. So just ensuring that the protocol is outlining the municipal process and then leveraging other documents as deemed appropriate as we move forward with official plan updates and those sorts of things. So it's going to be more than just the internal protocol to ensure that council and staff are aware of the steps that we're going to take when a file like this comes forward. So we're more prepared.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments so far, and thank you for those updates, CAO White. I think I concur with Councillor Mink that what we need is something to counter this kind of flow chart that's been put, that keeps getting circulated by EORN and SpectraPoint about how our process is going to unfold, that doesn't actually reflect how things are going to unfold here in Port Hope necessarily. I can speak to the fact that at the meeting last Wednesday, they said all sorts of things about what was going to happen here in Port Hope that had absolutely nothing to do with what it actually says in our policies, including our procedural bylaw. So I think there's some misinformation out there that unfortunately is being communicated to our residents by entities that had not to that date had any interaction with anyone representing the municipality. So obviously that's very concerning and has led to a lot of confusion. I did just want to share just with your group and for obviously everyone else who's here this evening or watching from home, I did speak with the Rogers representative, the SpectraPoint representatives, and the EORN representatives after the meeting last Wednesday, as did a number of other members of council. And one thing I think that needs to be clear, because there is some concerns, alarms sort of being rung, I think, people saying, well, why are we opposed to this? And what about the cell gap? The first thing the Rogers rep said to me is, if this site does not work out, we're not going anywhere. There will be cell towers in rural Port Hope per this project. It's a huge project, $300 million. So the question really isn't about, do we want to protect the moraine or do we want to have a cell tower? It really can be about where's the right place for this cell tower, but cell coverage is coming to rural Port Hope. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and this is a question maybe for the mayor or for you, CAO White, to take forward to the county. One thing that concerned me that the EORN representative said was they were surprised we didn't know, because they had met and provide regular updates to the county about this project, and that the county was well aware that this project was coming into our municipality. So that was concerning. I don't know if there's lots of information that was shared that night that hasn't proven to be completely accurate, but I would be interested to know if this project is going to be ongoing for a number of years to provide coverage in our municipality and neighboring municipalities, how that information is flowing from EORN through the Warden's Caucus, through the county, and then ultimately to the communities that we're going to be dealing with these questions as the projects come forward.
Yes, please, CEO, if you want to comment, and I will comment as well.
It has been identified that EORN is using the county as the mechanism to communicate down to the lower tier municipalities, where the majority of, well, almost all of the projects are not occurring on county-owned land. That is understandable, considering it is an initiative under the Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus and the money flows down through the county. It does make sense that they're using that. That said, there needs to be a conscious effort to ensure that lower tiers are receiving appropriate information in a timely manner. So now that this has been triggered and it's on our radar, the request is going to go forward to potentially be an EORN delegation to our lower tier here to ensure that we are aware. But to circle back around, my suspicion is that the information that was given to County Council was that a tower was going in Port Hope, not the particular site and address in which it was actually going. Because we all knew that there would be, cell towers going in most municipalities in the county, but not particular addresses and not particular sites identified. So I would be quite surprised at the County Council presentation if the address and site was actually given.
And I just want to iterate that in fact is a fact. The other thing I do want to underscore is that, as I understand it, our staff purposely reached out to the proponent to confirm that they were going to be attending tonight's council meeting as per their public announcement. And as you can see, they are not here. And that's all I want to say about that.
Can I just follow up with something real quick here after the questions? Just to reiterate, like the site selection process, Ryan, the landowner, he'd already signed the deal last April, and yeah, he was not aware of. Basically, he did not realize the pushback the community would have, and he actually tried to come out of the contract with Rogers, and then they basically strong-armed him and said that he wouldn't be able to afford to do so. But again, if there was proper site protocol, maybe we wouldn't have a resident that was signing a deal with Rogers already, almost a year before it's ever been brought to the public's attention. And then yeah, and I think we, as a group, we're not against cell phone coverage. That's not it. But I think there's more effective places to have this tower where the residents will welcome it. And at the first meeting, actually, the EORN representative had said he'd never seen so much pushback for a tower. So obviously, it's not. Yeah, the issue. The cell gap that they're describing is not as severe as it is, because otherwise us as people would be looking for the connectivity. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you very much again for your presentation. Thank you for being here. Oh, I see, Councillor Adam. Sorry, I missed you at the end of the table. Got to put that hand up.
Thank you. So thank you so much for the presentation. Wonderful presentation. I know how much work and how much time and energy that you put in, and the entire group has put into it. It's very refreshing to see residents that are that invested into something. I just have a quick question for you. At the meeting, there was a lot of questions that had been sent to them already, and they gave their guarantee that they would get back to everybody by the weekend. Nothing? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
We are also of the understanding that they'd be here tonight, as the mayor has pointed out.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to know if they got back to you on the questions, which was their personal guarantee. So thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you for that last question. Very important. So now we'll move on. That the recommended action identified on the agenda is to receive this presentation for information. Would a member of council like to move to receive this item for information? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6.2. Debbie Beattie, Program Director, Critical Mass Art, regarding foundational funding agreement. So I welcome you to the podium, and please press the purple button and please start. And we have a technical pause for a moment, just for a moment. There we go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, staff, and the audience behind me. Hello. I'm Debbie Beattie. I'm a resident of Ward 1. I've been here for 17 years, and I am the Program Director of Critical Mass, a Center for Contemporary Art. This is our little train station building where we're located 3 seasons of the year. So you'll see us there this coming May through December. I have left markers in front of all of you and a little wooden disc. We're going to get to that, but I'll just take a quick moment to let you shake that, because it's a paint marker. Just let it out of your system. Okay. Good. And before I move on, I just want to take a moment that there's going to be a bit of levity to my presentation today. I'm here to talk about the foundational funding agreement that Critical Mass has with the municipality of Port Hope. And I want to extend my sincere thanks. I've been involved with Critical Mass for 10 years, and the municipality has been our largest champion and advocate for those 10 years. So for those in the audience to know that, especially our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department, they're our best friends. They really push for us. We often give them crazy challenges on unrealistic deadlines, and they do their best to make things happen as quickly as possible, because artists are much like kittens, and it takes a lot of wrangling to get them in that basket. And yeah, we really appreciate your patience with us. So tonight I'm going to walk through, and this is probably more so for the audience to review the purpose of Critical Mass, for those who are not aware of what we do, perhaps. We'll talk about some of the highlights that we've been able to achieve as a result of our foundational funding, what we have on for this year, and what's next. Okay, so who are we? What's our purpose? essentially, we are here to hopefully make our community a better, more empathetic place for all of its members. And we do this by opening up hearts and minds through the power of art. We seek out, we create, we bring fun, thought-provoking, and engaging contemporary art experiences to Port Hope. And what we really try to do is remove barriers to accessing art. And we believe that through active participation in the arts, that we can have a positive impact on our community's health and well-being. And that helps shape the cultural vibrancy of this community. Okay, let's talk some numbers. We'll try to move this through. For those who are unaware, the foundational funding agreement has allowed us a 2-year agreement with the municipality to work around the community grant program. We struck a separate agreement with Parks, Rec, and Culture team and Municipal Council. And so we've received $25,000 last year and an additional $25,000 this year. So it's a 2-year. And they are undesignated funds for us to leverage the money that we have from the municipality to more funding. And that's so important because a lot of the funding for the arts, for a small organization like ours, we don't have operational funds, but we do receive a lot of project grants. And project grants typically pay specifically for artist fees or materials. They don't cover operational costs and the unsexy stuff of, insurance, keeping the staff, administrative things. So last year, our total revenues were just under $165,000. The municipal funding was 15% of our total budget. That attracted another 13% in provincial funding, and we were successful getting a larger federal grant as well for $58,000. But you'll notice, the lion's share of our funding is government funding, and what we're really trying to do right now is diversify our revenue sources. Last year, we were able to grow our membership and bring in more private donations, so that was fairly even with municipal funding. That brought us to about 14% of our budget through private donations, sponsorship, and membership fees. So I think I have here that we received $25,000 in 2023. We invested another $139,000 into the community, and doing things that meet the cultural plan goals, like increasing cultural participation and programming, strengthening the capacity of the emerging cultural sector. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the arts and culture groups in town have all been working together quite often over the past few years. We're all finding challenges and struggles with funding and capacity within our own organizations. And we find that there's a lot of power when we stick together and help enhance what each other is doing. And okay, so, and I think I was also asked to talk about how what we're doing aligns with the strategic pillars of Port Hope. You revised the strategic plan so that you have 6 strategic pillars. We're kind of hitting on 4 of those. We're not really talking about more homes or good governance, but strong local economy. Ontario Arts Council just published a recent stat that the economic return on arts activities throughout the province is 3-to-1. Critical mass is often seen even more than that with the funding that we have. We have a very small, hardworking team that can work on a shoestring budget when needed. So in past years, we've seen a return of 7-to-1. In terms of visitor spending, if we look at the tourism calculator for spending, it's over $1.2 million that is invested back into the local economy through those participation with the arts. And I'm getting this from the number that we engaged, which was just over 13,675 residents and visitors to Port Hope in 2023. And I'm wearing right now, and this will get me to the point, a visual documentation of the year that we had. So this is our impact. Each knitted row represents one person that has interacted with a knitting machine that we had hacked by 2 artists. One was more of a coder, an engineer, and the other works in arts and crafts. And so coming out of the pandemic, we wanted to document visually how we could come out together. So each month represents different activities that we have created ourselves or participated in with our community partners. Each month is represented by a different color of yarn that represents the river that runs through town, because that was surveyed by the community as being quite important. And I'm going to maybe pass this along, Julia. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay, if you can pass that around through there, you can get a sense of our impact this year. So these are the numbers, the snapshot. 13,675 people. Whoop. You got that. 26 special events. 12 professional artists that were commissioned. 1,500 visitors to the annual pumpkin parade. Those are 500 pumpkins displayed by the community. I'm loving this. 13 artist-led workshops and events. We had 500 pounds of waste diverted from the landfill through one of our projects with Beyond the Blue Box. Over 130 artworks were created out of vintage treasures that would have otherwise ended up in the landfill. And so we, through partnerships with Beyond the Blue Box and the Capitol Theatre, we were able to divert that. We doubled our membership last year by creating new events and partnerships. That's 194 new members. We had one great big restoration capital project. If you've noticed, the little station building has a brand new cedar roof. Lots of carpentry work that has been done. The chickadees have they packed some condo system in. They were creating their own home. So I guess we do go back to that first strategic pillar. But that has all been restored, and we have a fresh new paid job. 2,120 volunteer hours contributed with over 30 volunteers. So that's quite a bit. If we look at the value of that, that would be over $53,000. Here we go. Okay, so some of the highlights. Obviously, we've looked at the life of a small town, the little station restoration project. We've had our first annual Goose Ball. I've left some flyers on the table to the right there, and you're most welcome to take a look at that. We had our first Wizard of Oz puppet parade and some workshops in conjunction with Vintage Film Festival, and they sold out their show for the first time in their history. So this was a new partnership that we've been able to develop. A couple public installations. There's a new youth mural at Town Park Recreation Center, and we activated, did art activations at 11 other community events aside from the ones that we organize ourselves. Okay, and in the spring, we're working with the Capitol Theatre on Frog and Toad, their spring production, with some funding from the Port Hope Rotary Club. We have 100 students that are participating in a collaborative art piece. Rotary has paid for them to go and see the production, and thank you. And they'll be able to, showcase their work. So there is, there's a full roster of programming. If you would like more information on our financial numbers, we will submit our impact report to you electronically. And if you have any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the meeting tonight, and happy to take any now.
Thank you very much for that presentation and the
Mhm.
overview. I'm going to start
Oh,
by
yes.
asking, what are we supposed to
Yes.
do?
So
with
on those,
this?
write down your favorite or most memorable event or experience of the past year that you've been to, and then I will add it to our record according to which month it was. So sign your name on the back and then a little note, or you could draw a picture or something that represents that. But
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to just start with one quick question for you.
Mhm.
I know at the very beginning you had noted how important this funding is to your organization, how challenged all art and culture organizations are now for funding.
Mhm.
So, twofold question. One is you talked about the number of grants that you've been able to secure, but in terms of the municipal funding, were you able to leverage that directly to attract grants from other levels of government? And then as you talked about the fact that everybody's trying to work together more and collaborate, are you exploring any different kinds of partnerships and relationships? I mean, the Capitol Theatre here is a wonderful example of a partnership and collaboration, but things that are sort of outside the box that you wouldn't have thought about or entertained previously for thinking about how to be inventive around attracting more support and funding.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Absolutely, and I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but one of our new partnerships is with a national program called STEPS Public Art. They're headquartered in Toronto, and for our residency program this year, we've partnered with them, and they have a matching funds program. So we have 2 confirmed BIPOC artists that will be working with us to put on a temporary public art installation within the municipality. And STEPS, what they offer is professional development training over the course of 6 to 8 months. And they build a network and they offer a mentor for those artists who are emerging. And they match the funds that we put into the program so that the artists are getting paid a really good stipend and have significant cost to cover their materials as well. So for us, that was a really new and innovative partnership that we've looked into. CN Railway is also another partner that we're kind of in the early stages of working with them on various longer term growth. They're really interested in what we're doing and want to be more visible and active in the municipality. They are sponsoring our Indigenous artists in residence. So they've paid over $10,000 in residency fees. I know that the federal funding that we received, that was a direct reflection of our municipal support to show that we had committed levels of funding, that we show that our municipality is invested in what we do, that we're invested with additional funds. Really, that speaks to the Ontario government as well. We've had a lot of success with Trillium Foundation over the years, and that's how we've been able to pilot the residency program and develop a sound app.
Thank you. And just for members of the public that may not be familiar with all the acronyms, can you just explain what is BIPOC?
Yes, Indigenous, Black, and persons of color. So this program that we are working with them is about creating space for those artists who might not necessarily have the opportunity that many more like white privileged artists have been given. So and that's why the networking and the professional development is so crucial to that program. And I think for critical mass, being in a community that is very much white and very privileged for a small town, which is, it's wonderful. It's so engaged and we have the privilege of being able to participate. Not everyone feels that they can or that their voice is heard. And so we really want to make sure that we're reaching out to those artists, giving them the opportunity to be heard, and opening up our own minds and levels of empathy when we're thinking about new perspectives.
Thank you for that. And I see that Councillor Adam has a question, as does Councillor Mink. I'm not sure who is in what order. I just saw Councillor Adam first. Oh, or Councillor Mink's going to take the floor. Okay.
So thank you for your presentation. And so today we got this little craft. We also got a coloring book from ACO. So this is a great night for me anyway. A couple of questions I have. Well, I'm going to advocate for my rural community here. We have a group of people here from the Elizabethville area, which is the furthest away from this area, traveling anywhere from 45 to 60 kilometers round trip. Thank you for coming out, by the way. I grew up in a neighborhood far removed from my urban center. So could you, I'm putting you on the spot, but could you explain or give some examples of sort of from a rural perspective? I know we had a great artist, Jay Dart, a resident artist who came in and interviewed some of our rural farmers, but what can you say to them to bring them down here to participate, or how can we highlight some rural art into the mandate of Critical Mass?
Hello again. Yeah, that is a great question. And it is something that we do, we find challenging to offer so much programming for everyone in the community, but we're building the resources and the flexibility and the sustainability within our organization so that we can get out into the rural area. One of the initiatives that we've worked on in the past couple of years is getting large commercial projectors so that, and they're mobile, so that we can go out and bring artists in to gather some stories and share those stories with rural residents without having an environmental impact within their communities. We have had interviews with a number of rural residents. Jay Dart was an excellent example. He did his residency and talked about land and old fields, and he created a new media video piece that was illustrated, and so that was shared among rural residents. We've been talking to Hope Goat, and they're looking at public art as well right now at the farm, so we're connecting other Debbie with artists to have a large public sculpture of a goat in the community. So we're definitely open. One of the things about our organizations, we are not short of ideas. We're short of people, power, and time, and we do want to make more connections. I hope that members of Ward 2 will come down and visit us in the little station over the summer to learn a little bit about what we're doing. Reach out over email. Come to the Goose Ball. It's in the Fall Fair Center this year in the Agricultural Building. We try to make partnerships where we can, and I know that over the next couple of years we have some big ideas as well. So to bring something
Thank
public
you.
there.
And Councillor Adam.
Thank you. So unfortunately, I let Councillor Mink go first there, and she had everything that I wanted to say. I actually really, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to get to, I think, everything that you've done
Yeah,
over the
great.
course of many years. I know I'm not an artist myself, but I am very similar when you made reference to the artists being like kittens, and so am I,
Yes.
as I just play with everything. I had already been coloring in the coloring book.
Yeah.
I actually had already put your thing on my shirt because I didn't know what we were doing with this, so I just started doing stuff. Greatly appreciate all that. I have a quick question. At the Public Information Center for Walton Street, you were in attendance there, and we were speaking about collaborating and doing something with Walton Street. And I'm just curious, have you guys already designed and built the googly eyes for the tractors?
Why, yes. Yes, we have. In our minds.
Do
Yeah.
you have some plans coming up that maybe you want to share?
We did put together about a 30-page document of ideas, and poor Julia was trying to read through it all. What do I focus on first? But we're waiting on an announcement of funding through the My Main Street Community Activator Program, and then we'll be coordinating with the Parks, Rec, and Culture Committee. Jeannie plans on bringing the event stakeholders together and collaborating. A lot of the plan does involve working with other community partners to enhance existing events and put our minds together to create some new activations that will help out downtown businesses. And I was a business owner once myself downtown. I know how hard it is, and we will do our best to support you guys.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that support. And last question comes from Councillor Todd.
Thanks, Debbie. So I have a question, but it's actually not my question. I'm going to lean on Councillor Mink to help. So on our two previous foundational funding partners, Councillor Mink asked a very thoughtful question, and I was desperately trying to think of what it was because I was going to ask it. So I'm actually just going to maybe pitch it back if maybe you could dive in there.
So you want me to ask the same question? Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, well, you're putting me on the spot. I don't remember exactly either. But so I had asked the other two groups that get foundational funding if we have feedback that the municipality should not be offering any grants at all. There are communities out there who don't. So if that was the decision of this or a future council, how would that impact critical mass?
Gravely. If there's no community grant program, I would recommend seriously looking at having a budget line for supporting arts and culture within the community. And so however you're able to work that into the budget, it is a necessary level of support that the community needs. But yeah, it would have a devastating impact on not only our organization, but the others who rely on that assistance.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing that question back to the table for purposes of consistency. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder to receive this for information. Councillor Less has moved it. Councillor Mink has seconded it. All in favor? That is unanimously passed. Thank you very much. And do we pin this to the scarf? Do we pass this back to you? Okay. Okay, terrific. So now we're going to move on to item number 7, which is deputations, and it's now time for deputations from members of the public. Remember, deputations may only be made on a matter that is on the council agenda. Our community members are always encouraged to actively participate in our democratic process by making deputations. This method gives everyone a chance to express their opinions, their concerns, their thoughts, and their suggestions about topics on the council's agenda, playing a crucial role in decision-making processes for the various issues in front of us, the policies that we're trying to set, and the projects that we are trying to prioritize and or determine. In accordance with the procedural bylaw, in order to provide a deputation to council, you must register in advance, and you can register up to 1 day before the meeting, and you can visit our municipal website for complete registration details. So tonight we do have a few deputations, beginning with deputation 7.1. Michael Veen regarding item 6.1, presentation from S. Horn, development of a cell tower on the Oak Ridges Marine. I welcome Mr. Veen to the podium.
Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Michael Veen, a resident of Ward 2, and I would like to thank you for enabling me to be here to speak on behalf of my neighbors and users of the Ganaraska Forest. We are in desperate need of an improved cellular network in our area. As a business owner and resident of the area, I regularly need to use my phone. However, I often suffer from poor reception and drop calls. As some of you are aware, when I spoke to you previously on the phone from my home, my biggest fear is what happens when I need to make a phone call in an emergency situation and I can't get a signal. I'd like to take some time to outline this situation from my perspective. I would first like to highlight that when I moved into my home 7 years ago, the cell phone coverage was sufficient. But as density and usage on the towers has increased, the range of the towers servicing our area has decreased. This was especially evident during COVID, when many people moved from the cities and companies switched to work from home options. You'd be justified in asking, why don't you just switch to a different provider? We've heard from other people that we have good coverage. Within my household, my multi-generational household, I should specify, including seniors, my parents have Rogers. My wife and I use Koodo, which is TELUS, and my work phone is Bell. None of these cell phones provide adequate coverage. They all drop calls. They all can't get data. They all suffer from the same problem. So every single carrier that has a telecommunication tower, we do not get good reception on my property. I respect that my neighbors do, but we do not. Sorry, just lost my spot. So I got so frustrated recently that I called my cell phone service provider, and they informed me that the closest tower was over 7 kilometers away, and that there was no other tower close by that would service our area. And I would just like to highlight that I am more than 5 kilometers on my property from the Cavan Tower. So that would not satisfy my need or the needs of some of my neighbors who I've spoken to. Secondly, while attending the community meeting, I heard it said that the community does not want the tower because the majority of the people at the meeting do not want the tower. However, I would like to remind council that the purpose of the community meetings were for residents who have concerns to be able to vocalize them to the company. Residents who have no concerns saw no reason to attend or vocalize themselves at these meetings, myself being an exception as well as a few others. Therefore, it's logical to assume that since there was only, and I'm quoting here, about 65 people in attendance that were opposed, that's less than 2% of Ward 2's population. So we can safely assume that at least they're not opposed, or at least at the very least not strongly opposed enough to come to a meeting on the construction of a cellular tower. Thirdly, putting in a tower is in rural areas is not about economics, it's about equality. We should all have access to the technology that drives our modern world. My tax dollars have gone to build infrastructure in more densely populated areas. It is time for others to do the same for rural communities. As the world changes, things that were once seen as nice to haves become necessities. Things like running water, hydro, the telephone are all recognized as things that are now widely spread. The cell phone and access to a reliable network is now recognized by our governments as something that not only urban centers should have, but residents of rural communities as well, especially when we consider the transition of many companies to a work from home model and the need for the high-speed internet to enable that. Additionally, the cell phone tower is not just about our rural community, but about all the users of the Ganaraska Forest today who do not have access to reliable cell phone coverages when in the forest. I represent not only my wife in this case, who's with me today, but also our group of more than a dozen horse riders who go from our farm into the forest, as well as our neighbors from Cold Springs Farm and their half dozen riders as well. They all suffer from cell phone connection issues on our farm and in the forest. This is a safety concern that we can mitigate through the construction of a cellular tower in Ward 2. I'm aware of concerns about building a tower on the Oak Ridge Moraine core. However, another neighbor who supports the tower recently asked me about the Municipality of Port Hope bylaw 4.28, public uses, because it seems to apply in this case. There are two parts to this bylaw. 4.28.1 Part A prohibits the use of land in the Oak Ridge Moraine and other protected areas. Bylaw 4.28.1 Part B supersedes Part A and allows for the development of needed infrastructure, which includes cell phone towers. I want to be clear, though, I'm arguing for the need of a cellular tower in our region. I am not saying we have to build it where the proposed site is currently, or that the company has done a good job in communicating with the community. I agree with my neighbors that we should do everything in our power to make sure the company installing and managing the tower have done their due diligence in selecting this site and have complied with the appropriate regulations surrounding the construction of telecommunication towers. In closing, the question council should be asking is not whether we should build a telecommunication tower in Ward 2, but whether or not the location is the correct location given all of the requirements of telecommunication infrastructure. It does not. If it does this permit SpectraPoint to build, even if it is on the Oak Ridge Moraine core areas outlined by Municipality of Port Hope bylaws? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for bringing that important perspective to this council and raising the real public safety concerns that you have on your property and folks that are using your property and in the forest. Much appreciated. I'm now going to turn it over to my council colleagues for any questions or comments. Councillor Mink.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for your presentation. And this is exactly what makes this role here for ourselves very difficult, because there is the two perspectives and we're obligated to hear those two perspectives. My fear moving forward, as well as more towers will come up, this is what will happen wherever a tower is proposed. We have those who don't want it and those who need it. I fully understand your point of view. I live in an area where I do not have cell coverage. My voicemail on my council phone says, if you don't hear from me, it's because I didn't get it. And it'll go to some cyberspace and come in days later. Our rural works yard doesn't have adequate coverage. We need to make sure our rural roads operators, wherever they are, emergency crews, have access to communications when they need it. as well as those in the forest. I understand. I totally understand. So thank you for coming forward with that presentation, and I acknowledge that need as well as hearing from the other side. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Mink, seconded by Councillor Todd to receive this for information. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the second deputation, 7.2, Steve Brownell, Brownell, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, regarding item 6.1, presentation from S. Horn Development of a cell tower on the Oak Ridges Moraine. Welcome. You just press the little button there on the right-hand side. It says talk on the right-hand side. There you go. Thank
Do
you.
you hear me okay? Sorry about that. So I'm here just to speak about some of the technical issues with the proposed cell tower. First and foremost, I'm not sure if staff and council is aware, but in August 30th, 23, Ministry of Infrastructure put an RFQ out for satellite to terrestrial internet service, and it was awarded on January 3rd and to Rogers and Xplornet. And Xplornet has a tower in Elizabethville that they provide high-speed internet with. From a technical standpoint, towers are akin to a 1965 Chevy. They're old technology, they're cheap relatively, and they will be supplanted with satellite to terrestrial in short order. Also, Starlink has partnered with Rogers. It was just announced, and Rogers is going to be the sole source carrier for satellite to terrestrial cellular service for Canada on Starlink's backbone. So that will be happening in short order. I know that might sound like it's a long ways away, but Starlink managed to basically cover North America in the period of 3 years. And they're going to be utilizing the transponders that are on existing Starlink satellites. So it's really going to come down to CRTC issues and maybe some licensing. But since Rogers has already signed on, I'm sure the legislative portion has already been done in the background. So that technology will be available to Rogers to provide coverage, basically circumventing it. The other thing I'd like to speak to is where I live, I'm at the corner of Oak Hill and True Road. Fiber was run through initiative right down through the forest, right along the roads, but not connected to a lot of the homes that were in the area. So there was a missed opportunity. At the time when I spoke to them, they actually said that they were looking to bypass fiber and go directly from satellite to terrestrial. So that's been in the works for some time. They've known that. The other thing that I'd like to mention is the average cost of a cell tower to be erected in the US is $250,000 US. That's for a large tower. This project, they're spending upwards of $1 million per tower. So I'd like to kind of understand from an economic standpoint, why is the cost of delivery so high relative when the largest tower erector in the world states themselves the high end is $250,000 US dollars. So it seems like we're paying twice as much for the deliverables. The other thing is they've sole sourced the site, because if you understand LTE and how it is supposed to be delivered, a more appropriate placement would be multiple small towers throughout Port Hope to give better coverage for the whole area, and obviously not on core protected land. Sorry. One of the things I'd also like to point out is if you go to Rogers' own website and you look at Rogers' stated coverage map, unfortunately I didn't have time to get this into it, they show all of Port Hope, in fact all of Northumberland County, as covered. And if you look at the LTE and 5G, there are gaps. Yes, there are, but there is cellular coverage. As for the concern about 911, 911 uses repeaters. It doesn't use cellular technology. So the claim that you need cellular service for emergency services is false. And basically every phone that's being produced now has the ability to connect to satellite for SOS messaging. People with older phones, obviously, there's going to be a gap, but there's also, I do a lot of backcountry motorcycle riding, and I use a satellite to SOS transponder that you can push for recovery. You can text with it. So, I don't think the whole notion that the Ganaraska Forest is some vast wilderness where people are going to get lost. I was a member of the volunteer patrol from its onset till it was dismembered. I've been a forest user actively in the forest since the early 90s. And I can tell you, I've never come across an issue where somebody needed a cell phone coverage. So most riders have GPSs for navigation. And as I said, 911 uses transponders. So 911, maybe you can't get your text or a TikTok or live stream something in the forest, but I don't think that's what we're here for. We live a rural lifestyle. And quite frankly, talking with the riders at Kendall Hill Stud Farm, which is the largest employer in the area, and then have multiple riders, probably, 30, 40 riders. None of them have ever complained about lack of coverage in the forest. So those are just some of the points I wanted to bring up in terms of technical aspects. And I really think that Rogers is sole sourcing this. They found a willing participant that would host this tower. Ms. Mayor, I don't know if you remember me. Me and you, with my neighbor, stood at the end of his driveway in the evening, and I pointed to that vast tract of land that was uninterrupted. One of the last areas, the Ganaraska Forest, where we don't have to look at modern infrastructure. I built my house. I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. My neighbors, millions of dollars. We probably collectively represent a $50 to $60 million investment. Just this core group of 12 individuals that are passionate about it, beyond the 80 people that have signed this petition. A lot of people, hundreds of millions of dollars that they've invested to live in a rural lifestyle. I'm a tech guy. I work for the largest grocer in Canada. My job, one of my jobs, one of many jobs, was to look at satellite tracking technology. I looked at cellular technology. I get it. I walked away from that so I could live a fairly disconnected lifestyle. I'm not a Luddite. I know we need tech. I understand the need for it, but it can be done. It can be done right, where it balances the needs of the community with the needs of the services that are provided. And I don't think giving one of the largest corporations in Canada carte blanche to build on one of the last tracts of protected land in Port Hope and in Southern Ontario, I think it's wrong-headed. And, I'm quite upset about it, as you might can get. But I just wanted to, and I can provide any information in terms of the tech and information. The other last thing I want to mention is you do have the right as council or as a proponent for the land to ask for a full federal environmental assessment. And if this tower was going on a piece of federal land beside here, or even in the industrial area, they would have to conduct that full environmental assessment. They selected that site because they knew that nobody else in the area wanted to host that site.
Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Brownell. And I'm going to just turn it over to my council colleagues for any further questions or comments. We really appreciate the perspective that you bring to us, and thank you for your engagement. Councillor Lass.
In prior councils, and this is even before Bill 5 came into Port Hope, there was presentations made to council stating that the technology had evolved to such a point that there was small receivers and repeaters, etc., and they were going to be deployed on high buildings and existing utility poles. And that went nowhere after Bell 5.
That's correct, Les. One of the promises of 5G technology was multiple small panels throughout existing infrastructure. That was always the big push. That's one of the reasons why they wanted it, was to provide faster speeds to the end users, but also because it could be deployed very quickly, very cost effectively, without having to get into large infrastructure projects. They have the option. They can do what are called monopoles. They can do what are called infrastructure. They could literally put a series of these panels along telephone poles throughout the area to provide more coverage if they wanted to. But this is a sole source, sole solution. It's not right, and it's not right headed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
All right, I didn't ask these questions of the previous deputation giver, what are we call deputer, because we had this conversation by phone, but I do want to ask you, if there was a site that was identified that wasn't on the core of the Oak Ridges Moraine, would you support the tower, or are you opposed to all towers in the rural area?
I'm not opposed to all towers in the area. I have been a big proponent of using existing infrastructure, which is there. There are many towers in the area which can be brought up by 25%. They can add to the height with them without no input from us. They haven't done that. There's other options in terms of small towers that could be placed throughout the area, which would probably give more effective coverage. Because I know Councillor Mink has suggested that their area is not well serviced. Canton's not well serviced, and nowhere do I see Inspector's Point that you guys will get that. And just so you do understand, cell signals can travel upwards of 45 kilometers. Okay, are you going to get a great service? No, but when people talk about emergency services or connectivity, the reason why we have so many towers is because of the amount of users, but also because of the speeds that they want to deliver, because that has changed. But large towers are not the solution. That's why if you go into downtown cores, they don't put massive towers up on top of even tall buildings. They deploy lots of small panels throughout the area so that they can give better service and more nodes so that you don't overload panels. Because what's going to happen, that tower is going to go up and then the nodes will get overloaded.
The second part of that question then is, pending further guidance from staff and a protocol for the municipality, as it stands right now, certainly my read on things is our role is really limited to making sure that the process is followed, and that if the tower is going to go on the moraine, it is only going there because all other options have been explored and it's been determined that there is no other feasible location. So from your perspective, if there was, absolutely not saying we're there yet at all, certainly not from what we've seen so far, but if we were to get to a point in the process where it was determined and we felt comfortable that the evidence showed there was no other appropriate location, what then? Would you support the tower going there as a last resort, or would you still be opposed?
I'm not opposed to the implementation of towers, but as I opened up, it is redundant technology that is going away. I don't see the point of implementing a technology that's going to be basically be grandfathered out within the next 5 years. We're probably, even if everything was to go ahead today, 6 to 8 months before the tower will be put up. So I don't see the issue here myself. But yes, they could implement small towers throughout the township to help with coverage for everybody.
Thank you very much again for that presentation. I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder to receive this for information. Moved by Councillor Todd, second by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Now we reach our last deputation for this evening, 7.3. Tracy Patterson regarding the same item, and I welcome Ms. Patterson to the podium.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council for this opportunity, and good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Patterson. I'm here tonight representing myself and 32 horse owners who board their horses at Kendall Hills Equine. I want to be clear that collectively we are not, we support improved connectivity and the need for it, equitable cellular coverage and web access, et cetera, and provider competition. We're not opposed to that. What we are opposed to is we do not support the establishment of a cell tower on the Oak Ridges Moraine within the Greenbelt. And we are in full agreement with the Ganaraska Oak Ridges Guardians and their position as Mr. Horn and Mr. Bromwell have presented. So I wanted first to provide some context. The Oak Ridges Moraine is one of the most significant ecological features in the entire province. It is the headwaters to more than 30 rivers. It is a hydrologic sponge, purifying water, providing a continuous source of clean, potable water, and maintaining critical groundwater supplies for drinking and agriculture, as well as absorbing extreme precipitation events and preventing downstream flooding. And that is a serious concern as we're seeing more and more extreme weather events. Leading jurisdictions protect their headwaters, period. It is home to literally thousands of plant and animal species. It includes 70 of Canada's endangered species. The moraine and the Greenbelt contain the largest tract of prime agricultural land, that is Class 1 and Class 2 farmland, which we are losing rapidly. And they also have a production value of over $4 billion a year in agricultural products. Over 76 million people visited the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Greenbelt, each year, contributing $8.3 billion in GDP and supporting 161,500 local jobs. I say all this because that is one of the prime reasons that the Oak Ridges Moraine Protection Act exists, is to protect this incredible ecological feature that has economic and agricultural benefits. So this begs the question for all of us is, how did Rogers and its consultant SpectraPoint, with the support of EON, select a site for the proposed tower within the core Oak Ridges Moraine? So we've already discussed that we support connectivity. So I don't think it's about different perspectives. I think it's about this process and what they have done or failed to do. And the councillors who were at that session, I will draw your attention to the entire discussion of the site selection process and the discussion of alternatives. When pressed, the representatives said that they had completed a site selection process, asked if they had a map of the site selection process. They were unable to provide a map. They said it was unavailable. When asked if they would, if in the site selection process, if they had identified those sites, where were those sites and how many sites were there? Again, that information they said they didn't have and it was unavailable. They then said that they had done a natural heritage assessment. When asked if they would provide that natural heritage assessment, they said that it wasn't completed yet. So I don't know how familiar you are with the site selection process, but I have worked in water resources for over 20 years, and I have been involved in master planning and in site selection processes. And very simply, you start with multiple sites across a multiple geographic area that you need to operate in, and you look at alternatives as well, like putting connectivity on hydro poles. So you look at all those options and you narrow it down to a dozen, whatever, 2 dozen, depending on your geographic area, you narrow it down to a number of sites. Then you go through screening criteria, and this is large screening criteria looking at hydrologic function, social impact, economic, etc. And then you narrow it down to even a smaller set of sites. Throughout this process, you have consultation and engagement with stakeholders, and you get their input, and you get down to a preferred site. That process of getting down to a preferred site ensures that that preferred site either has the most benefits or the least impacts. And having been involved in site selection processes and in infrastructure processes, I can tell you the last place we go is the Oak Ridges Moraine, because of its ecological significance and because it is protected under the Oak Ridges Conservation Act. Now, they said that they had identified these sites but could not provide any information on these sites. The only thing that they have provided in what they call their site selection report. They call it a site selection report, There is one site identified. That's the site that they've selected. And they have also got a site plan survey in there. Well, you don't do a site plan survey until you've selected your specific site. But when pressed, they then did a 180 and told us that, well, actually, the site selection process is still going on. So when asked, how did you enter into a long-term contract with the property owner, and how have you started on a natural heritage assessment if you haven't yet selected sites? They couldn't provide an answer to that question. So what I feel that has happened here, and I think all of us feel has happened here, is that there has not been transparency. It has not been an honest and open process, and they have not followed basic site selection protocol, and they have not looked at potential alternatives. So we are not opposed to connectivity, quite the alternative. What we are opposed to is this kind of process where it's driving towards one site, one location only, and everything is fait accompli before anybody has a chance to have input or look at alternatives. And there is no way that this tower should be going on core Oak Ridges Moraine land. There are ultimately lots of other alternatives for them to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And in particular, thank you for bringing your specific expertise and insights to this council. I'm going to again open it up to my colleagues for questions and comments, starting with Councillor Mink.
Thank you very much. So through the chair, thank you for your presentation, and thank you to Steve as well. I didn't have a question, but thank you. I think I already know the answer, but just for the record, are you aware of anyone else in that area being approached for this tower?
I did, okay. No, I'm not aware of anyone being approached. In fact, we asked everyone if they had been, and nobody had been approached. And also, at the initial meeting, the first meeting we had, the individual said that they had sent correspondence to the Ganaraska Conservation Authority about other potential sites not on the moraine, but they had never heard back from them. And then I raised that point at the last consultation session, and he just dismissed it and said, no, they were misinformed. So we're not getting clear information, but their own documentation shows one site, site plan assessment. You don't do a site plan assessment in the process. Anybody in planning here knows that. You don't do that till you've actually selected the site. So, and then they say, well, we haven't selected the site. We're still doing a site selection process, even though we've entered into a long-term contract with the property owner. It is completely nonsensical, and quite frankly, it is a fabrication.
Thank you. Councillor Lass.
When I first went into the meeting and the loudness started taking effect, I thought, well, what if we took the same attitude when we were building the 401 and we got to Port Hope and the people on Jocelyn Street said, no, we don't want the 401, stop it here, start it again in Coburg. So there would be no contiguous service. And then after listening to Steve and to the other people in the audience and their arguments, I thought, well, wait a second. There's no alternatives to roads, so we need roads. There's no flying cars, and that's going to be beyond our lifetime. But there is technology available that would prevent us having to build a tower. And so now I've swayed my view to, yeah, there's got to be an alternative to the tower.
I think they have to demonstrate that they have explored all these opportunities and alternatives and share that through open, transparent public consultation. There's a lot of public dollars available here. If anything, this should be above board. That should happen. I agree. And they should also, if a site is required, then they should go through a proper site selection process. And again, that should be transparent. None of that has transpired here.
Thank you. Thank you again. And so I'm going to ask for mover and seconder. Move. Sure.
Sorry, we didn't get to me. I just wanted to, no worries. I just wanted to say, I think one of the most important things I think that you said, apart from
the mayor's comments about your specific experience on site selection is that I think you're right. I'm not hearing different perspectives. I'm hearing common perspectives, I think, from all residents this evening and at the meeting. I think everybody agrees cell coverage is an issue. We want connectivity. That seems to be a point of agreement amongst everyone. And there does seem to be a point of agreement that the moraine should be protected and that a proper process needs to be followed to make sure that if there's ever going to be infrastructure on the moraine, that it's because there are no other options. I've not heard anyone say, forget the moraine, we don't care. So I think there is actually a lot of agreement, and we need to be careful that we don't end up, making it feel divisive, because I think you're all fairly united and calling for the same thing. And that what I hear for people who are speaking about the cell coverage is, let's make sure that does not get forgotten in this discussion, that cell coverage and connectivity is required. It's about what is the correct way to get there in a way that makes sense for the community and respects, our official plan, secondary plan for the moraine, as well as the Oak Ridges Moraine Act. So thank you for pointing out that.
Thank you. Agreed. There is an obligation, whether you're private sector or public sector, there is an obligation to do these things correctly, above board, with clear and transparent discussions with stakeholders in the community. That hasn't happened, number one. And number two, they haven't explored alternatives. It's not even about alternative sites. They haven't even explored alternative options for providing that connectivity. And I think, quite frankly, that's reprehensible and inexcusable, particularly when public dollars are involved.
Thank you again. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. And I just have a couple things I want to say is at this point, I think we're going to take a brief pause just to let folks leave the room and for some of us to be able to have a bio break. But just before we do that, I do have just one question for the CAO. Can you just please let us all know what will be the mode of communication that will be used by the municipality if the municipal process is triggered on this file?
Thank you for the question. Mode of communication to council or mode of communication to the public, or both?
Both.
I thought you were going to say that. Did you have something to say? Okay.
Just this process would be triggered to the mayor, to the CAO, and the members of the public. This process would be triggered if and when the proponent makes an application for a letter of concurrence. We would never accept an application for a letter of concurrence if it didn't also be accompanied by a site plan application, which is, while I have authority to sign a site plan, it is a public process that would require public notice to all of the neighboring residents. So that being said, that would start another public process related to this project, just to be sort of upfront before the CAO, who may not have been in this jurisdiction long enough to recognize that may happen.
Thank you, Director Davis. I appreciate that. So communication, as soon as any documentation is received from the proponent to the planning department, we will advise council via email that process has been triggered. And we will work with our internal channels to determine if maybe we need to put something up on our website to determine that, that the site plan control process and the letter of concurrence has been requested. So at least the community knows that process has been triggered. Details of that process, the outcome of that process will not be included in that initial communication. That would have to be determined over time as we work through it.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for everybody for their engagement. This evening, we're going to take a brief recess. Okay. I'm going to move on to item number 9, the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion, Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would any member of council like to remove any of these items for separate discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for actually, let me just flip to my notes. I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes as listed. Can I ask for a mover? Councillor Adam is the mover, seconder Councillor Les, all in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Item number 10, consent agenda, advisory committee and board meetings. Does anyone have anything they want to add before we vote on this item? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to receive this item for information? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Todd, all in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 11, items for consideration. 11.1, report PS 0824, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer appointment, summer student. We have two items for consideration on the agenda tonight. The first is the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer appointment of the summer student. So that's where we're going to start. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report? Okay, seeing none, is there a mover and seconder or any questions or any comments before? Okay, moved by Councillor Adam, seconded by Councillor Todd, all in favor, and that is passed unanimously. 11.2, report FS 0624, Ministry of Transportation, dedicated gas tax funding. Does staff have anything further they'd like to add before we consider this report? Seeing none, can I get any questions, comments? Mover and seconder, moved by Councillor. Oh, okay. Was that were you moving and seconding? I just want to. Okay, so then if no one else has any questions, then Deputy Mayor.
I am committing a faux pas. I'm totally putting CAO White on the spot right now with a question about this, and fair if you're not able to answer. But I did came to my attention recently that the Ontario government has recently announced the extension of the gas tax cut to the end of 2024, which was previously scheduled to end at the end of June this year. And given that how closely linked our municipal portion of that tax revenue is to our transportation program, I was wondering if you have any knowledge of how our funding of transportation shifted post 2022 when the cut came in, and what this tax cut at the provincial level means to our ability to fund our transportation network and save for vehicle replacement per the requirements of our asset management plan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I can't answer anything that was in play pre-2022. I'll have to ask Director Baxter and get back to you. That said, there has been no communication that has come forward from the provincial government that I am aware of that is going to further reduce and impact the gas tax allocation. We've received our notices once we enter into this agreement. That is our solidified commitment and agreement with the program to receive those funds, regardless of the cut extension. So this agreement will solidify that without a further reduction. That said, in subsequent years, I think then you could potentially see how the cut would impact it. To be able to compare pre-2022 and today, that piece I can't answer this evening. You're welcome.
Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Mink, all in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 12, committee reports and recommendations. I'm not going to be asking authors to introduce the reports. They've already done so at the Committee of the Whole, and this is just an opportunity for council members to provide further feedback on each item prior to voting. So 12.1, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting April 2nd, 2024, regarding report CS 0724 re 2024 to 2027, advisory committee appointments, Heritage Port Hope Advisory Committee. Is there anything anyone would like to add to this? Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action on the agenda? Moved by Councillor Mink, seconded by Councillor Les, all in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 12.2, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting April 2nd, 2024 regarding the Youth Wellness Hub. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? Councillor Mink?
Thank you, through the chair. So for the past couple of weeks, I've had a lot of questions come to me, which I can't answer regarding this. There's been questions that are rumor-based as well as just general related questions. And so some of the questions that I won't repeat the rumor-based ones, but questions that are more I guess for us as a council are whether why we're appointing council members as opposed to staff. Will council members be making decisions on the steering committee on behalf of the rest of council, and is this a council related or a municipal project? So those are a few of the questions that come to me, and I think this just kind of brings to light that people have questions in the community, and they're asking, well, when do we get an opportunity to get this information, ask our questions? There's more. I've had quite a few questions come to me. So just, I guess I'm just putting that out there as to, if we have two council members joining a steering committee, it's perceived that it is something that council is moving as opposed to participating in. And I think we need to give that clarity that it's not a council project, or clarify our activity or our involvement in our role that we're playing here on the steering committee.
Thank you for that question. I think that there's going to be more detailed terms of reference that are put together and more detailed information once Rebound actually starts operationalizing the plan. They are the lead service organization, and as far as I know, they have not yet set out the terms of reference for any of the committees, including the steering committee. I think it's clear from this table that we collectively as a council voted to support this project coming into the community. I think that there is enough information, at least at the front end, shared with what the purpose is of the hub, and there's going to be far more information coming in the coming weeks. It's still very, very early days. I wrote extensively about the Youth Wellness Hub in my Mayor's Corner a couple of weeks ago, and will continue to be providing updates through that venue and in other venues. And I expect that Rebound has a very robust communication plan that will be in place to continue to disseminate information about that. And when the official launch happens on May the 2nd at 1:30, there's going to be 3 ministers in the community also speaking to the project, and a fundraising event the next day where a number of the service organizations will be continuing to provide more information. So I think this is the very beginning, and as information comes, we'll be sharing it. Yes, and Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I could just add to that, because I had to consider this question sort of when the mayor approached me with the notice of motion that included potentially me being appointed to the steering committee. And the way I thought about it is, you recall a couple of months ago, we passed a motion endorsing a resolution of Cobourg Council that was essentially calling for Cobourg to have a seat at the table for the 310 Division Street Transition House project, on the basis that even though it's a project that's where the funding is coming from another level of government and it's not a municipal program, because it is a significant project happening in the community, that the municipality should be at the table, so to speak. And so that's sort of how I've seen my participation on the steering committee. Is this is not a municipal scope project. It's not something that is in our wheelhouse, but it is happening here, and it will have impacts in our community, largely extremely positive, I anticipate, but that we should have some role and be at the table representing the municipality in the project. I did also find it really interesting the slide from the delegation or the presentation that showed sort of the whole ecosystem of who will be involved, where it very clearly showed the steering committee is one of a number of sort of advisory bodies around the project, including, you know, the coming together of all those service providers, including a family advisory committee, including a youth advisory group. So the steering committee will not be steering the project, you know, necessarily from the helm, but rather be one of a number of different groups that's going to be part of the ecosystem of informing the project moving forward.
And just to add, Councillor Mink, if there are any rumors or questions that come your way, you can always ask them to contact either myself or the Deputy Mayor directly, and we would be happy to direct them to the people that actually can answer their questions from an operations perspective, because there is a detailed governance structure that is being led by 23 service organizations.
Thank you. So just thank you for your responses. So just to follow up on that, I think it's more along the lines of people normally contact us as councillors for questions, even to the Deputy Mayor's point earlier about PHAI, as they come to us. So I think our involvement in the steering committee gives that idea that we are the main point of contact for all information. So I think it's just that clarity of rebound versus council's role, and something we need to work on moving forward as it unfolds.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the terms of reference will be forthcoming, and I think it was very clear that Rebound is the service organization that is absolutely leading this initiative. They're taking legal responsibility for the initiative. They've got the insurance, everything else in place, and the funding is coming directly to them for this project. And the rest of the committees and groups, the terms of reference will be developed, and the project will unfold organically as it does in every community. Okay, so can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. And moving on to item number 13, we have no motions to bring forward. Item number 14, bylaws, consent agenda. Bylaws are passed by consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove a bylaw for separate consideration and or discussion? Seeing none, can I please get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Adam, stay with me. Seconded by Councillor Todd, all in favor. And that is passed unanimously. So it's now time for the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder for 15.1, 28-2024, confirmation of the council meeting? Moved by Councillor Less, second by Councillor Todd. All in favor? Thank you. That is passed unanimously. This concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. We've reached the end of our agenda today, and I'm in a position to adjourn. And it is 8:34 p.m. And thank you to all of you